So greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I am joined by a dear friend of mine and a friend of the channel. And she has been around since the early days of this channel. And we have known each other and we've spoken about films and music. And I've had a great time visiting her channel and her particular part of the YouTube community space. And that's an interesting part as well. And I hope to get to that and other topics today with our dear friend, Rachel Williams. Rachel.
Hi, Daisuke. Thank you. First of all, thank you for having me as your guest. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to talking to you. And well, I think hopefully the operative word here is fun. I hope we're going to have some fun doing this.
Oh, I know we will, because we've spoken a lot before, and it's just now that we have managed to figure out our schedules, and
Yeah,
so
you're a
that's
busy
wonderful.
man. I know that.
No, not at all, not at all. It's
Okay.
this thing about the time difference, because
Yeah, sure.
we are on different sides of the world. So
It's Friday, 3:45 p.m. here, and it's like I guess 7:45 in the morning your time.
yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
but thank you so much for taking some of your some time out of your busy schedule to
Thank you.
to sit down with me. So, Rachel, before we get started, I did mention that one of the places that you are active online is through your YouTube channel and through the activities that you do on your channel and with the people that you connect with there and the community that you're involved with there. Could you tell us a little bit about your YouTube channel? Again, for people who might be meeting you for the first time. So what could you tell us about your YouTube channel? What does you do there?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to tell you about it. I belong to what's called the vinyl community. So we're kind of a loosely affiliated, associated bunch of people from all over the world interested in vinyl in particular. So records, old timey records that are in recent years, they've experienced a bit of a revival. And also CDs are part and parcel of that, cassette tapes, 8-track tapes, so physical media, ways of recording music and physical media. That is generally the group. Now, my channel started off, much like everybody else, I have this little camera here, and I do a prepared video, much like you do when you're doing a review of a film, let's say, other than your live streams. And so it would take, for example, I'd hold up a record. Let's grab one, because we're talking soundtracks today. But within that context, say I've got Amadeus, and the people say, this is Amadeus, I got this. This is an original pressing. It is not a repress. We have our own language for all this sort of thing, reissues, repress. We call these OGs, original gangster. This is the one that came out. And so we talk about the record, we'd open up, we'd show the label. And so people, what label is that on, Rachel? Someone may ask. And it goes on like that. Well, a lot of people do that. What I did is I cut a niche for myself doing the live stream. Essentially, I got tired of doing all the editing. Oh, I said that wrong. That record was released in 1985. I said 82. I better go back in there and put typing and say, correct the text. Got rid of all that. Now I've got my camera up here. I've got my microphone at the ready, little Netiano, and I just speak, go, fire, and forget. I don't keep a record of the live streams. I delete them after, but I have guests on. We talk music. We'll talk politics. We'll talk world events. We'll talk movies. A lot of movies get discussed, quite frankly. And we'll talk generally anything. And there's conflict. There's all sorts of things that happen. The conflict, because we're dealing with real humans in real time. and personalities will clash and people have strong opinions, one thing or the other. But at its core, at its base is music. And the channel is called Rachel, the Music Ma'am, M-A-M, not man, but M-A-M, Ma'am VC. And there's a story behind that, but we'll let that go for now. Suffice to say, it's Rachel, the Music Man VC. It's a live streaming channel, and we talk about music. So that's essentially what I do. And we have a lot of laughs doing it.
And oh, thank you so much, Rachel. Yes, yes. And before I forget, I will leave all the information in the description box of this particular video. So I encourage anyone who's watching this and who is interested in some vinyl community discussions and music community discussions and music collector community discussions, please check out Rachel's channel. And there are so many lovely people, so many friendly people that I remember I was watching one of the live streams that you had with a bunch of other people, and I just typed in some questions and comments, and then suddenly everyone is so welcoming and talking about, oh, movie soundtracks, and oh, I have this, I have, oh, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it
Oh
does.
my
It
goodness.
catches on like that. Very much so, Daisuke. And of course, your knowledge was felt immediately, like people, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. So, and that, so that it created some more energy, I think, in the people that were there that day. But yeah, we talk about all sorts of things. So, and your presence there is always welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, and my warmest regards to everyone.
Yeah,
And I need to do that again very soon. But
yeah, I'll give a link and I'll promote this once it's up in your channel. And I do talk about you on the stream, just because when it comes to Criterion, you're my man, you're the guy, you're my channel I go to. And man, I've enjoyed the Bond series in particular. Of course, I showed up for a couple of those. And your discussions, of course, you did one on the Beatles, near and dear to me. I had to be there for that. And then, of course, your review of the Bruce Lee, newly released from last fall, Bruce Lee's catalog coming out on Criterion, which is, I mean, greatly desired.
oh, thank you so much, my dear friend. Thank you. I'm very honored indeed that you would remember those. So thank you. And I do remember, for example, the discussion that was had here about the film A Hard Day's Night, because and it reminds me, of course, that you are. I mean, it reminds me of the Beatles, and of course the types of music and the types of things that you listen to. So,
Yeah.
actually, before I forget, could you let us know what are some what's the type of music that you like? And what are some examples of musicians that you were really into?
It's a kind of a long story, but the Reader's Digest version, the Coles Notes version, classic rock. I come out of the Beatles gate, 1973. I discovered what's called the Red Album. It's a compilation album of the Beatles' greatest hits, 62 to 66. A companion blue album called 67 to 70 was also released that year. They were actually produced in reaction to a bootleg series that had come out called The Beatles Alpha and Omega, capital Apple Corporation, seeing difficult, Apple being distinct from the Apple computer people, but Apple being the Beatles private record label that they had created, independent label. And so they came up with an answer to this bootleg so that they could start reaping some of the benefits of their own catalog. And very successful albums it was, and both of them, the red and blue, but it was the red one in particular that was my intro. From there, it led to Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, and the Blue Oyster Cult. And in particular, yes, progressive rock music became very important to me. And so my own palette, as I matured, I think to some extent my music has matured, and because of the vinyl community, it's expanded even farther, so that I'm buying jazz records. So Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Bill Evans, just a galaxy. Dave Brubeck, so many different jazz artists. So that's in there. Blues artists, Albert Lee, Freddie King, Albert King, Buddy Guy. So the music goes on and on. You keep constantly learning. And of course, I attended a lot of concerts growing up. So I've seen Paul McCartney, I've seen Ringo Starr, I've seen Eric Clapton, Pink Floyd, The Who, The Rolling Stones, a number of, and yes, I've seen a number of times. Oh, I lost
That
your sound, Daisuke.
Oh
There it
no,
is.
can you hear me again? Yes, I was just like wow, wow every time. So I had to mute
Yeah.
myself because I was just reacting in
Oh,
real
I
time
see.
to this great response, which was amazing. And You mentioned the red album and the blue album, and the
Yes.
blue album, I guess, is I like the blue album, and well, I like both of them. I'm also a fan of the Beatles. I don't think my expertise is nowhere near as where yours is, but I'm the blue album. I know, for example, that's the one where you can hear the song "While My Guitar Gently Weeps"
Oh,
without
yes.
the version on the white album. It cuts immediately from the immediate song, so you can get the clean version,
Cut,
right? Yeah,
clean
yeah,
cut of the song.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Without the
without the edit.
bleed in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But I like both versions actually. So, but what are some of your favorite Beatles records, by the way?
The standard answer I give folks is on any given day, any Beatles album will be my favorite. And I will tell people that are interested in records, a lot of people don't understand the nuances between the CD sound, digital sound versus analog. And so and the quality, if it's a digital sound source, sometimes they'll compress the sound. So they'll take the highs and the lows off, and it lacks a dynamism. So, for example, I have a dear wife, her name's Sue, and to teach her and I know this is the scenic route to in order to answer the question, but I'll take us there. I think people find the question interesting. And so this is not related directly to Beatles, but it's that issue with digital and favorite. Anyway, I take Sue in the room. I said, listen to Simon Garfunkel's greatest hits. And I play the boxer. In a clearing stands a boxer and a fighter by his trade, and he carries the reminders of every glove that laid him low and cut him till he cried out his anger shame. I am leaving, but the fighter still remains. La, la, la. Song goes on. She listened to it. She goes, sounds good, great. I go, now listen to this. I took a 2i Columbia. That's an old label that Columbia Records, their labels change. There's 6 eyes, 2 eyes, and they change over the years. I put on the Columbia 2i from 1970, dropped the stylus down on it. The music began to play, and Sue's jaw dropped. She says, oh my. I go, yes, there is a difference. I go, what sounded better to you? The old record, even though it has some crack and popple in it, or the CD? She goes, CD's cleaner, but it was so blah. I go, this is amazing. I go, you got it. That's the thing. So with my Beatles, when you get the right pressings, Abbey Road is marvelous, just wonderful album. Revolver is, many people point as the greatest. The Magical Mystery Tour, which was originally an EP in the UK, but we turned it into an album in North America. So that's a favorite. And it's also got my favorite Beatles song, Strawberry Fields Forever. Rubber Soul is a strong album. So on any given day, any of these would be my favorite Beatle album. But if I were to push comes to shove, the album I've listened to more than any other is Abbey Road. I seem to go back to that one over and over. The beautiful introduction of the Moog synthesizer, which was groundbreaking in its time. And I think it set the template for recording from that period on after, because there was so much more they could do with the music, with the technology. And it was at that point they realized, oh, some of this music is going to be very difficult to ever play on the road, should they ever decide to play it live and in concert. It would be very difficult to replicate.
Oh yes, thank you so much. Yes, I love that album. I love Abbey Road, and
Yeah, the artwork, is you know, it's iconic in so many on so many levels, and of course George Harrison with 3 songs on it is a nice feature as well. Something, Here Comes the Sun, and the other one escapes me right now, but you know, just amazing. George really coming to his own near the end of the Beatles run. And of course, in the world of film, Peter Jackson is now going back and taking the Let It Be film, which is an interesting film, originally done by Michael Lindsay Hogg. And now Peter Jackson taking the raw footage and creating something new out of something old. And so I look at it with some interest to see what exactly will come out, because his restoration ability, the technology we have in 2021 is pretty remarkable.
Have you had a chance to see that the documentary, the Michael Lindsay Hogg documentary, Let It Be?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Owned a copy for many years,
Yeah.
but on the VHS format.
Yeah.
And it's one where there's an argument in there between George Harrison and Paul McCartney. And that, because it unintentionally became a record of the, pardon the pun, of the Beatles' dissolution. It's the breakup of the Beatles. And for that reason, it's been mothballed. It's moratorium. It's been put aside. And the other films have received help, has received Blu-ray treatment. And of course, Hard Day's Night, Criterion has got a hold of it now in a very nice edition.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that's a really great point about that little argument that, what was it? I don't mind. I'll play whatever it is you want me to play. You know, whatever it is that will please you, I'll do it, or something. Yeah. That,
Yeah,
and
that's
that was
exactly
that clip also appeared in the anthology, right?
Yes, it is in the
yeah.
Beatles anthology. And of course, I own the anthology on DVD. The other thing is there's another argument in there that's very interesting, very telling. Paul McCartney trying to encourage John Lennon, let's go on the road again. Well, of course, Beatlemania and all that entailed became a real negative for all of them. They got tired of it. They said, no more of this. We don't want to be. So 1966, August 29th, Candlestick Park, the Beatles end their life of touring. And they go into the studio, and that's when Revolver and Rubber Soul, and they decide we're not going to be touring anymore. So Revolver 66 comes out, and it's a studio album, but they don't tour to support the album. And then following that, of course, the magnificent Sgt. Pepper, which is by anybody's estimation is a great landmark. So they stopped touring, but in the context of the Let It Be film, there's a Paul saying, let's go back on the road. And John Lennon's there, and he stretches, he reaches his hand out, and he's just looking at Paul, deadpan, like, you gotta, it's as if to say, you gotta be kidding me. Paul's going, you can see him working as best he can to try and encourage John, let's get back on the road. And of course, that never happened. But what did happen, they at least were able to talk John to get up to the roof on Savile Row, number 3 in London. And they do that famous last rooftop performance.
I love the moment. It's obviously very, very famous. You know it, of course, but I love my favorite moment of that great moment, that point in history is well, seeing all the reactions from people on the ground, like, huh, what is that? And some people are so excited, other people are like, oh, what's going on? And then the bit when they're singing Don't Let Me Down, right? And
Yes.
John messes up on one of the bits in the lyric. It's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and sometimes I saw that, like, sometimes I see it intact, and sometimes I see it with the flub version. I don't know, but
yeah, there's probably different editings that have gone on. The Beatles, of course, various takes, and particularly from the Let It Be sessions when they were in the studio at Twickenham Studio, which by all accounts was a dreadful experience. So regardless or independent of what Jackson decides to do, it was a very difficult and bitter time for the Beatles. They did break up. They did sue one another. Paul McCartney's album Ram has a couple of Beatles jumping on each other in an intimate way, as if to send a message to John Lennon. And John Lennon counters with him holding a pig to mock Paul McCartney's position on the cover of Ram, where Paul's holding a ram. There's John holding a pig, sending a message. So they were very unhappy with one another, and it was coming out in the lyrics of their songs. So it was a very difficult, acrimonious period of time. Whether this is Paul and Ringo trying to do some revision to put a happier face on a difficult time, we leave that for future developments to reveal.
Yeah, what's the how does he start? How does John Lennon start that song? Right, so Sergeant Pepper took you
Took
by
you by
surprise. Yeah,
surprise. Yeah. How do
and
you sleep at night?
yes, and the only thing you done was
Yesterday.
yesterday. Oh my goodness! And then, but yeah, the reaction to Ram. Yeah,
And
incidentally,
then, oh,
that's. Oh no, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, please.
I was just going to say on Paul McCartney for his part with Too Many People, the flip side of Uncle Albert, Admiral Halsey, the B side of that is a song called Too Many People. Too many people preaching practices. He's talking to John, right? So telling John
And
and Yoko, don't preach at me,
yeah,
look at yourselves.
it,
So a lot of acrimony is what I'm trying to say, and that we are having a new film. So I'm still, independent of all that, I'm still happy the new film's coming out.
what are some of those other like Beatles maybe documentaries or Beatles movies that you would recommend to people?
Yeah, I happen to bring one here. The one I don't have, and it's on VHS, and it's called The Complete Beatles. It was done in 1982, and it's wonderful. It features interviews with Harry Williams, who is part of the Mersey Beat magazine back in the old day. Alan Owen, the script writer for Hard Day's Night, I believe, makes an appearance in there. Just for interviews with different people. I've got some of those names wrong, but I'll let it go because it's live and I can't reference it right now. But at any rate, George Martin's in there, and it was the very best thing available until the Beatles anthology. And of course, the anthology is, I believe, 6-part or 6 DVD release. I don't believe it's been released on Blu-ray yet, but it's a very complete and telling documentary. This one, 8 Days a Week, the touring years, that just came out recently, directed by Ron Howard. Of course, Ron Howard has really come on over the last 20 years as being one of the great directors of our time. So many popular films that he's done, Ron Howard. But this is excellent, 8 Days a Week. And they really did a nice job of it. So that would be recommended. And of course, there's the Beatles films themselves. So they did Hard Day's Night, followed by Help, followed by the Magical Mystery Tour, which was a made-for-TV production, Let It Be, and then a Magical Mystery Tour, which I think I just mentioned. So those are the 4 main things the Beatles did. There's the Imagine film about John Lennon. There's Wingspan, which was a documentary about Paul and his group with Wings. And then Scorsese did George Harrison, the film for George Harrison, a documentary, very good documentary on George. I forget the name of that one, but it's one of those things I could look up and come back, but we'll let it go for now. Folks can find it out there.
Living in the Material World, right?
Is that what he called it?
I think so, yeah. And so yes, and the and I'm so sorry to keep asking like this, but I'm also a big fan, and so I mean, what are some of your I mean, you mentioned the Abbey Road, but what are some of your favorite songs?
Well, again, number one, it has to be Strawberry Fields Forever. It's just a masterpiece. It's done in 2 different keys. It's a mishmash, 2 different speeds. They took different recordings of it, cut and spliced it together. Dreamlike, John Lennon. John's my favorite Beatle. So most of my favorite Beatles songs are the ones that came out of John's corner of the McCartney-Lennon writing team. And they weren't always, a little bit of a myth about the Lennon-McCartney writing team, because in the early records, we didn't know, but everything was Lennon-McCartney composition. And then there was Harris songs for George's stuff, and then Starkey for Ringo. And so you'd see the different writing credits, but Nowhere Man is a wonderful song. And John is speaking about himself, like often John's self-reference. And because of that, he's not as popular and perhaps on the massive scale that McCartney had more mass appeal. I often also use this allegory for the Beatles. John Lennon is a steel bar and Paul McCartney's this beautiful, delicious cotton candy. Don't bite too hard into that sweet cotton candy or you'll break your teeth on the steel bar that's John Lennon. How does that equate and work out in the music? Well, Paul goes, we can work it out. John Lennon, life is very hard and there's no time for fun. So all the minor keys and the downbeat go down to John, but Paul's the up part. The other one they did is, it's getting better all the time. And John Lennon's line is, it couldn't get no worse. So there's Paul with that optimism. And there's John with that cold reminder of be cautious before you proceed.
Interesting. Do you see that same kind of dynamic applicable to their contributions to a song like, say, A Day in the Life?
Well, very much so there. I read the news today, oh boy, some guy, a lucky man, he just made the grade blew his mind out in a car. And then Paul's woke up, fell out of bed, drank the comb across my, and Paul's all happy, grab my coat, grab my hat. And so made the bus second flat. So that's that happening. Had a smoke, went into a dream. So beautiful. That's Paul. But there is a lot of discussion about who does that within Beatles circle, Beatle people. And it is Paul, but I believe there's a little bit of John that they cut in and put in at the end. So it's a little bit of both. Keep in mind, Paul McCartney, though he denies it in the song, Let Me Roll It, which came off Band on the Run, but he channels John Lennon. To my ear, that's Paul McCartney sounding like John Lennon. Where let me roll it to ya. And he does that kind of, let me roll it to ya. And he's got that inflection and it's very reminiscent of John Lennon.
Who does the sing? Like there's a moment in the song on the White Album, which is Helter Skelter.
Oh, yes.
And it's in the second part, which is, right? Paul does the really almost just aggressive vocal. And the second part, which is what is it? Will you? Won't you? Want me to make you?
Yeah,
and then right, and then the backing, and I always, whenever I heard that song and I hear that moment and the backing,
yes,
I get chills all the time. Yes. Yeah, what a oh, that's great. Strawberry Fields Forever. I love this. And
beautiful song.
What is that one? The anthology release versions, right? 1, 2, and 3. I think it comes on number 2. Yeah, those double disc CDs. Yeah, and so I really got into them. When that anthology came out, I was just. And that huge book came out, and
I've got that book.
It's huge. It's great. And then
it is.
And I got that anthology on VHS, and you could put it was an 8 tapes, and you could put it all.
Yes.
And it made the entire that artwork.
It does a panorama of the artwork on it.
Yeah, I still have.
It was somewhere. A very nice product. It came out in 1995 is when they did that.
Oh, is that? Oh, 95. And, so wow.
95, yeah.
And I love the
George
the interviews.
Dies in 2001, so it's George, Paul, and Ringo there for that.
Yeah, and they have their. I love when they're talking about they go to India and Ringo's talking about he brought his suitcase full of Heinz baked beans and.
Yes, he did.
And
worried
and
about
Paul,
the food, exactly. Don't drink the water.
And Paul, and especially in the early part, he's doing his interviews on while he's driving his boat.
Yes.
Or something like that. And
that's a snippet that they took from that, where he's talking about different things. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and the what? Oh my goodness. What did you think of something like Free as a Bird and Real Love? What they did after?
I like them. Jeff Lynne producing, so it doesn't have George Martin's touch. Of course, everything within the main discography of the Beatles, a lot of people, the casual observer of the Beatles music, there are 12 studio albums released in the UK that cover the entire career. The Beatles go from 1962 to 1970, right, for the recorded music, the length of their career. So it's really short in the great scheme of things, but what an impact they made. So George Martin produced every album except for Let It Be. And that's another indication of how troubled things were, that George Martin says, I don't want anything to do with this. And then Phil Spector was brought in. And of course, Paul McCartney famously hating the string arrangements on the Long and Winding Road that Phil put on. Of course, Phil, famous for the wall of sound in his LA studio and layers of music, and a very gifted producer, but not to Paul's liking. And again, that was another bone of contention. The others said, let's go with Phil. Paul wasn't so happy. And then later, of course, John passed on. They did the Let It Be Naked. So it's all stripped down. And finally, Paul was able to present the song Long and Winding Road the way he wanted it. In fact, it's all the songs minus the Spector touch.
And yeah, and so I think also that I like the version of I Me Mine as well that you can hear on that.
Great
And
song, George
yeah,
Harrison.
yeah, what a great, very dark type of song. And I
Yeah,
also
but
love the
that's
moment.
George.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
That's George. I mean, George Harrison has some people argue or point out, not so much argue, but they make the point that it's because that they have this Irish tradition. Harrison is an Irish name. McCartney's not the Scottish version of McCartney, but it's the Irish version. And Lennon is an Irish name as well. So 3 of the 4, Ringo Starkey is an English name, but there's that melancholy. There's that Irish touch of melancholy that is present within, some people argue, within the national psyche of the Irish. I'm part Irish, so I'll own that comment. I think there's a certain degree of that. I like a melancholy. There's something about it that's very moving to me and rewarding.
And I love the bit in the documentary when I think it cuts to a shot of John and Yoko dancing to like a
Yes,
waltz
they
type
are.
of dance. And then I think they use that little bit for the Free as a Bird music video.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
Yeah, John Lennon was heavy duty in love with Yoko. Heavily duty. He wrote the song "She's So Heavy." I want you so bad. That's him. That literally wanting Yoko so desperately. She was an artist. She's come under a lot of vilification over the years. I'm not a fan of her vocalizings, but I respect her as an artist. She is a real artist. She is trained musically. She has music training. She went to Sarah Lawrence University College, the same one that Linda McCartney also attended, Linda Eastman. They were both at Sarah Lawrence College. But Yoko, very gifted in her own right. And some of her music, particularly as the later years went on, a little less avant-garde, a little less experimental, and therefore more accessible to the general public. And so really interesting stuff. And their love story was real, it was sincere, it was passionate, it was drug fueled. Certainly in the beginning, John Lennon addicted to heroin. There were excesses, there were problems. So hey, let's get naked and show the world. This is John breaking free. This is a Two Virgins album I talk about. This is John Lennon trying to break free of I'm the Beatle, the mop top. What better way to shatter any illusion to is there going to be Beatles when you've got John Lennon there naked with his wife? I mean, that clearly is all over now, baby blue.
And I love also thank you. And yes, the I think do we right? Yoko Ono's voice does appear a little bit in, what is it, the continuing story of Bungalow Bill?
Bungalow Bill. Yeah, you
Yeah.
can definitely hear Yoko's vocal. Yeah.
And I loved how you brought up I Want You, She's So Heavy. I love that song. And it's
droning masterpiece.
Yes. Yeah. And I always thought of it also like the great other side of the coin to the earlier song, which was I Want to Be Your Man. So they had that same kind of repetitive pattern.
Yeah, I want to be
Yeah.
your lover, baby. I want
Yeah.
to be your man. And
And then
that's when
much
they
years
gave
later,
over to Ringo to vocalize for
yeah,
them.
that's right. That's right. And then also the Rolling Stones too,
Yes,
right?
they
Yeah.
did. They gave it to the Stones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Which version do you like better, the Stones version or
I
the
like the
album
Rolling
version?
Stones. A lot of people get into this dichotomy of, oh, you got to be Stones or Beatles. I've got a lot of Rolling Stones albums. I've got about 18 or so Rolling Stones albums in my collection. A lot of them, I prefer their 60s period. I saw the Rolling Stones in concert when they did their Steel Wheels tour. So Bill Wyman was still with them then. So it was great to see that lineup. So it was Ronnie Wood, Keith Richards, it's got Mick, and Bill Wyman's there. So really nice to see them all
Oh,
there. And of course, Charlie on the drums.
wow. Oh, I'm so sorry I have to ask you. So what are some of your, you said the 60s period of the
Yeah.
Rolling Stones. What are some examples of
Oh, get off my cloud, under my thumb. So they started off as a real blues-based band in London, very different from the Beatles that came out of that skiffle sound in the northwest part of England. And I've been to London, and I've been to Liverpool to make the pilgrimage. I'm very involved in genealogy, Daisuke, and to the bemusement of the people who watch my channel, I'll frequently mention, oh, I'm related to this, or I have connections here. I'll tell you my Beatles connection. My first cousin, 3 times removed, was the chairman of the board of EMI. He co-founded the British Gramophone Company. He was chairman of the board at EMI for many years. He sent his nephew out, so my second cousin, 2 times removed, in the language of genealogy. He went into St. John's Wood to buy a studio for EMI, St. John's Wood on Abbey Road. So the studio that became Abbey Road Studios was purchased by my cousin on behalf of kind of another, or first cousin, 3 times removed. So distantly related, but I take any connection I can to the Beatles. So yeah.
oh, that's, oh my goodness. What a
And of course I
connection.
had to go to Abbey Road and walk across there and do the thing.
Oh, this is, oh my goodness. Thank you so much for this. This is
Thank
really,
you. I
really
love talking
wonderful.
Beatles.
Incidentally, also you mentioned Paul McCartney there. You mentioned the Rolling Stones. We didn't get a chance to talk about. Yes, I remember. One of these days
Yeah.
I have to tell you the story about how I first heard the song "Close to the Edge." And I was
Fantastic. It's
just
my
I was
favorite
just
album.
yeah, and or this, yes, the I didn't, I just heard it and I didn't know what it was, and I saw it. It was, oh, there's this thing called Close to the Edge. Oh, okay,
Yes.
and I was thinking to myself, oh, it'll be like a what, like a 2-3 minute maybe song. How,
Yes.
minutes,
Yeah, it's the full
time
size kind
time
of thing of the
stretches. Yes,
album.
yes, yes. And I just didn't realize, in my young naive way, I didn't realize what I was in
Yeah.
for.
It's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, should be over now. Oh no,
But
we're
it,
still going.
it was like history was unfolding. I was feeling like the like humanity and time just
Yeah.
stretch out. It was really one of the most amazing experiences
Yeah,
in my
over
youthful
here in
days.
North America, particularly in the 70s, and I'll tell you this, just going back to the Beatles briefly, is that Japanese pressings of the Beatles, and I had them all.
Oh yeah.
And they came out with various editions of them, and they have the obi on the side. I've still got a number of Japanese pressings in my collection because I'm here with all my soundtracks ready to roll. But so I didn't prepare with all my Japanese pressing, but having that, I want you to know that in the 70s, the Japanese pressings were the #1 audiophile way to listen to that music. And I'm not an audiophile per se, but I'm an audiophile wannabe. In other words, I buy the very best equipment my dollar will allow me to get so that I can maximize my listening experience. It really does make a difference. And until you've heard it, you will not know the difference. So something to check out. And if you come to my channel and you get in discussion, we talk gear with people and what's the best stylus and the cartridge. I've got and you would be able to pronounce it better than me, but it's a Japanese cartridge. It's one of the best in the world. And it's called a Nageoka is the name of the company that makes them, or Nagoka. However, yeah, you would know Daisuke. But it's Nagoka MP150, not the top of their line, but the stylus is as good as my entire turntable, just that little cartridge that sits on the end of the what's called the tone arm. And it's very high quality and reproduces a very warm, beautiful, rich sound, and with all the definitions, so you can hear the high parts in the song, the middle parts, the low parts. Very beautiful cartridge. So yes, I swear by the Nagoka cartridges. They're very, very good.
Oh, thank you so much, my friend. Thank you. And I'm so sorry. Yes, I know that we were going to talk a little bit about film soundtracks or scores as well, and so I didn't anticipate how much we would be getting into the Beatles discussion.
The
Otherwise,
wind
I would.
carries us where the wind carries us,
I'm
right?
so sorry. I would have I should have prepared this better, but that's the way it goes because it's I'm as I said, oh gosh, yeah, I'm a huge fan, but I don't know nearly I don't know 1/10 of 1%, 0.0001% of what you know. So this is
Well,
just
that's
a
me with
hint.
you. Hey, on the other foot, that's you in film. I'm very passionate about film. I love film. I would like to share this thought. I went back in the days when VHS came out. That was a revelation to me. Ooh, and this is it postdates the Laserdisc technology, which was before the VHS. I have a whole theory about the Sony Betamax versus the VHS war. I think the proprietary nature of Sony torpedoed them, even though I feel they had a better product with a better picture, a smaller, more compact packaging, superior, in my opinion. But because they made it proprietary, much like Apple computers, they lost all the market share to Hitachi and Sanyo and these companies, the RCA, that weren't proprietary on the VHS. What, you want to make it? Sure, but you got to pay us a licensing fee. Then you can go make your own VHS machine. And suddenly you were at the tape store. You're in those days, the old individual before the big box stores came in, like Blockbuster. But these were mom and pop outfits. Little stores, corner stores would have their selection, and you'd see the DVD, sorry, I'm forgetting my media. You'd see the Betamax, and it was such a small selection. You see this massive selection of VHS. You go, what are you going to buy? Well, I want this film. It's only available on VHS. Even though I'm giving up the better quality, I got to get this VHS. I'm going VHS. But I started with Beta because I saw how good it was. But they choked themselves out, and you couldn't get the same degree of product on Beta as you could on VHS. Same thing happened with computing and Apple. You'd go in, you'd see your Apple computers, and you'd go in for your games, and there'd be this little section of Mac games, and over here would be a wall of PC games. You go, I got to go for a PC clone. There's so much more content available. So it kind of determined it. And I think they shot themselves in the foot that way a little bit. But
And
I'm sorry, one more thing. Oh, I'm so
sure,
sorry. I do
no, no, not
apologize.
at all.
I get so excited. So what happened when this happened? I soon learned about the first thing I learned was the widescreen versus the TV screen, the square 4x6 kind of square television screen where the letterbox. I loved letterbox. And then I discovered Siskel and Ebert talking about film, talking like you talk about film, Daisuke. I said this in the comment section of your own presentations. I go, Daisuke, this is the same passion that you're speaking is like what got me turned on to movies when I saw Siskel and Ebert, and the depth of analysis and the passion they had and the love for film was so contagious and so infectious. I go, I got to get into this. And I went, yes. And just today on my show, I was talking about Gene and Roger, telling the folks that it's really Gene Siskel that see, if Roger and Gene both liked the film, I'd like it. It was guaranteed I'd like the film. But there were some films I liked that Roger didn't like. And the ones that I tended to like that Roger didn't like, Gene also liked. So I found that there was some sensibility between Siskel and my own intake with different film. And they were a massive education for me. And then bring us fast forward, a lifetime away, there's YouTube and the internet. And I went searching for Criterion one day because I'd learned just through my interest in film that this is, and I know you're hesitant, says you've often downplayed, well, I don't like to say they're the best, but they're very, very good. The way they've restored some films, the analysis of Barry Lyndon, for example, how much screen speckle are we going to leave? How clean do we want it? All this sort of thing. I just love the detail, the thought. At least this is a part of the Criterion sensibility. You presented it and reignited my passion. And so I'm bit by bit, I'm starting to add some Criterion to my collection again, specifically because they aren't cheap, and I'm in Canada, so we don't get the half sale Barnes and Nobles that our American friends get.
In Canada, I think what is it? It's unobstructed view, I think. There might be some site called Unobstructed View that
Ooh.
could provide some kind of discount for people residing in Canada. So Unobstructed View. Please check it. I don't know directly, but that's what I've heard from our friends who
Thank
tried
you,
to buy.
Canadians. Unobstructed View. Thank you, Daisuke.
So,
all right.
And this is great because this is talking about essentially your film journey and what it was that as you were growing up, and you talked about the VHS days and the VHS stores before the big chains, Blockbuster and the like. And so this is
Yes.
What were some of those films that you watched growing up that really had an impact on you?
So many, too numerous to name, but I'll just stop on a few little genres and things that really impacted me that were magical to me. One was Journey to the Center of the Earth. I'm 4 years old. This film is like 1958 or so. James Mason, the great James Mason, and they're going down into this magical world, and I'm 4 years old, and I'm sick, and I get up at around 12 midnight or something like this. I'm out of bed, I'm 4, and I was allowed to sit on my dad's lap. Mom's there, and this show is on TV, and we watch it together. My little brother was asleep, so it was a very personal, private time, even though, and I wasn't feeling good, but I was being comforted because I'm a little kid. My dad's holding me, and we're watching Journey to the Center of the Earth, which I just love. Another film, 20,000 Leagues Beneath the Sea, adventurous, fantastic. Golden Voyages of Sinbad, Harryhausen. You know how to say his name probably. His anagraphics, I forget the term, excuse me, but you know what I'm saying, the claymation and how he was able to do that, fantastic. 1968, my parents take me to the Planet of the Apes outdoor theater and saw Planet of the Apes. Scared the heck out of me, but I loved it, the adventure of it, and I thought it was such a great film. Going to my dad's hometown in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. We're doing a trip across Canada. My brother and I were given some money to go to the theater, and we watched Waterloo with Rod Steiger and Christopher Plummer. And I was astounded because I'm like 11 years old, and I'm going, holy moly, is this an incredible movie with all the adventure and the cannons and the gallantry and the sacrifice and all that drama and the uniforms and just the pageantry of all that really ignited my passion. And then moving into the 70s, I discovered Bruce Lee. And then I see the film I've seen more than any other is Enter the Dragon, which I saw 17 times at the theater. I kept going back and back. This is 70s. I didn't have a lot of money. I'm a kid. Bruce Lee's death in 73 is the greatest. It's like John Lennon, and even worse. Bruce Lee was 33 when he passes. He born in 1940. 33, he passes. How many more films could he have made? And bigger, and Enter the Dragon was the first big American blockbuster. It had all that Hollywood polish on it. Sure, it's rough around the edges. It's still got issues, but it was the promise of what could have been. It would have. We were robbed of so much, and there was nobody in the world, in my opinion, that could have matched the excitement and the personality and the charisma that individual. He was a real hero. My bedroom was covered in Bruce Lee posters, and I bought Bruce Lee magazines. In fact, I got one somewhere back here. I've just redone my study, but I've got one that I ordered up from California in the 70s up here in my bookcase behind me. At any rate, just wonderful. And his physical prowess and the charisma on that, I was just a real fan. So those are some of the films, action films. And then as I matured and got older, then it was thinking films. My Dinner with Andre, powerful film, recommended to me by Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel. Another one they recommended, Babette's Feast on Criterion. Beautiful. The message on that film is love. A self-sacrificing love, a love greater than ourselves. It is an absolutely poignant, beautiful film written by Isaac Dinesen, who in the world of strange coincidences was not engaged, but she had an affair with a cousin of mine, another one of my distant cousins, another second cousin 2 times removed, Finch Hatton, Dennis Finch Hatton, and he was portrayed by Robert Redford in Out of Africa. Meryl Streep portraying Isaac Dinesen, Danish author, but she also wrote Babette's Feast. So fantastic film. And so those kind of films, these human study films, are tremendously important to me. I can also be quite critical, Daisuke. So I feel if a film is too shallow, I'm very critical of Titanic. For example, I'm critical of the film Titanic because I feel there's too many cliches. Oh, this is a rich English guy and he's the bad guy. It's kind of like the villains are too simple to. I think the special effects dominate the story, and I think there's better love stories and more poignant stories and more moving stories than that one. One I'll mention that's not really a love story, but a film I absolutely adore that will break me every time, and it's a masterful film, is Pan's Labyrinth. And I don't want to spoil anything, but that's really important that I don't do that. I will just say, if you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, and I'm not talking to you, I know you have, but folks, if you've never seen this film, it takes you in places. It's such a juxtaposition. It's such a conflict and a contrast of so many moods and emotions. It's an absolute masterpiece. So big fan of that film too, Daisuke.
Oh, bravo, my friend. Thank you so much for that wonderful overview of your journey, or some examples of stops along the way, as it were.
Yeah, that really impacted me, that I thought, wow, this is remarkable, great filmmaking.
And they have, I love how there are some similarities and also there are some differences in the choices that you make. It shows a nice variety. And I know that there are many more as well. You said that.
Oh, I love the silly pop films. So the Beatles' Help is, you can put that in that cadre of films. In Like Flint, Our Man Flint, What's New Pussycat, Casino Royale, not the remake, but the 60s version with Woody Allen, Peter Sellers, Ursula Andress, a cast of thousands. And also even earlier 63s, It's a Mad, 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 Mad World, which I own on Criterion. Fantastic film. But these silly throwaways, those magnificent men in their flying machines, those daring young men in their jaunty jalopies, and The Great Race, all these kind of films, I really embraced and enjoyed those as a young person, like 11, 12, and even younger. Just the colors and the sense of adventure and the magic in those films really stay with me and have throughout my life. So yeah, love them.
And then that of course, that means also that you had your love of cinema and your love of music, and then that, and of course, these are parallel courses, as it were, and there is, of course, an intersection. There is a crossover between film and music, which now brings me to my next question to you, and what we were discussing earlier, which were uh, in your own film or cinema journey and in your own music journey, what are some of those great examples for you
Yeah.
as to those crossovers, those great film music moments for you? And those can
Yeah.
be scores or soundtracks, moments in films, however you want to take it, my friend. So let's start with let's start with your general response, I suppose. Yes.
Thank you so much, Daisuke. I mean, wonderful question. I've got a whole bunch of films laid out here and when coming into this, because we brainstormed this a little bit, coming together, I wanted to talk about music that helps propel the story at a certain moment in a film. And as soon as I say that, I am hoping that within yourself, certain films that have an impact, and I'll mention some. I've got examples here. And then there's the whole idea of musicals. Some of the the great musicals that have been out that are fun to watch and entertaining, and some of the music has really been transformative. And then there's those films where a hit song will come out. So I think of The Entertainer, Sting, Robert Redford, and Paul Newman, and Marvin Hamlish's beautiful song that came out of that. Maurice Jarre, who's fantastic. And that's a perfect segue with Maurice Jarre. I got a couple of things to show you. First of all, I think, well, Maurice Jarre, of course, the song I'm thinking of is Laura's theme from Dr. Zhivago. And he also did Lawrence of Arabia, of course, the magnificent David Lean. Jarre worked with Lean on a number of his films. But this one goes under the carpet perhaps a bit. And if you've never had a chance to see this film, I encourage everybody to watch it. This is a brilliant film. And it is my favorite war film of all time, because I think in the genre of war films, few genres lend themselves to such stirring national kind of pride, heroic themes as war films. And the film in question is Paris Burning. This is, I think, 1966. And it's a cast of thousands like they did with The Longest Day and this sort of thing. There are some cliched moments about it, but it's the story of the French resistance. And the use of music in here is the German army, the Sixth Army, is given their own theme music. Very martial, very militaristic, but still stirring and powerful. And you feel the weight of the pressure of this massive machine called the German Wehrmacht coming in to Paris, taking it over. And then you've got the Americans, heroic, free and breezy, but still with that stirring heroic thing, very reminiscent of the music that appears in this film, The Great Escape. And of course, The Bridge on the River Kwai is another film where you've got this music that tries to stir, to motivate, to speak to a sense of heroism and might and pride. And finally, you've got the Paris people themselves. And their music is all accordion based and lilting and melodic and waltz filled. And it's so joyful. And so these three themes appear throughout. When the Americans show, they play a hint. Jarre will play a hint of the American theme. Oh, right, here's the Americans. I'm not confused. I'm looking at the Americans coming. Who am I seeing now? Oh, okay, there's the Germans again. Oh, and here's the French people. And it's just it's a powerful film. And the message in this film is the message of freedom and liberty, and how valuable that gift for all of us as humans is. And it's our heritage and our right as human beings to have that banner, that standard of liberty. It's ours as humans to own. It's our human right. This film speaks to that. A screenplay by Gore Vidal and Francis Coppola. So a marvelous, marvelous film. But there's an example of how music was used to really propel this story forward and really help identify and signify the features in it. Of course, the Great Escape theme. You've got Steve McQueen in jail, or in the gulag, whatever they would call it, the brig. I forget my term for it. The hot box, in the box you go, and throwing the baseball against the wall and this sort of thing with that music. Poignant, beautiful, lovely, stirring. So those are examples within that context. Daisuke.
Oh, great. That's and this is these are examples, and they have, I think, similar maybe genre, or a similar type of subject matter. It's very different, I understand, but there are
They
some
have a similar
similarities.
function, I think,
Yeah.
the idea of speaking of hope. There's hope in the music. The way they've scaled it, it's kind of an up tempo thing, and there's hope in the music. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 ba-dum, ba-ba. And then the more music comes and fills it, and you're stirred, and there's hope that peace will come and victory will be there. Speaking of kind of music that creates a moment that's used to describe a moment, Apocalypse Now, and the cry of the Valkyries as those helicopters are going in, and there's dun, 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 and just the drama that happens with that moment. So that there's a case of music in this film showing the power of the American forces coming in. And of course, the cruelty that's involved of just nilly-willy with the machine gun shooting into these people that are clearly civilians in the rice paddies below. It's a horrific scene, and the callousness of it and the madness of it, where you've got, man, I love the smell of napalm in the morning with Duvall's famous line with his military cavalry thing. It's quite interesting. There's a lot of social commentary, I think, built into that moment. And then this film, the contrast of the Welsh men of Harlech. This is Michael Caine's screen debut in the film Zulu. And the Welsh troopers, British troopers at Rorke's Drift, are defending against overwhelming numbers of Zulu warriors. And then the contrast of the Welsh singing Men of Harlech, a national song for Wales, and then the Zulu battle chant, which is beautiful in its own right, and terrifying, because the sheer power of the weight and the ferocity of the enemy that these men are facing. So again, another case where music is really used to effect, to help, and it's a highlight of the film, of course, when they all sing out, because they're facing impossible odds. And so it's quite a stirring moment in the film.
Oh, that's great, my friend. Thank you. And that also leads me to a similar question, which was, you've spoken about some examples of music used in films, and using the films themselves or your copies of them to illustrate the points. And then now turning the conversation slightly into the direction of, say, I know there's a distinction between scores and soundtracks.
Yes.
Let's start with, maybe, I think a good way to lead into, let's start with scores. Let's start with
Sure.
the idea of film scores.
Yes.
And so what would be some examples of those great film scores for you?
Yeah. Well, I think, so often parodied and imitated. In fact, Bruce Lee, his Way of the Dragon or Return of the Dragon, of course, it was given two different titles, as you know, for different markets. But Ennio Morricone's score for The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and all the spaghetti westerns, really became an archetype that was copied and reproduced everywhere. Do you remember the intro? Like you recently, within the last 6 months or so, I think you went through the Bruce Lee collection. I think it was in late 2020 that you were able to see it, fall or late summer. And Way of the Dragon, do you remember where it's got the opening credits and the titles, and it's got the boats, and it's hoo ha, you know, it's got that kind of, and it's got that touch, that Morricone touch. And so it's kind of a Asian version of what Morricone was doing here.
That's interesting because, in fact, I
Filmmaker.
think in that film, The Way of the Dragon, there's a little, when Chuck Norris's character comes onto the scene, there's a little
Oh,
bit of music when they actually, you can tell it's actually the score, or a little bit of the score sampling from from Once Upon a Time in the West. So there's another
okay.
connection. Yeah.
And fantastic film. Once Upon a Time in the West, a film I just watched for the first time, if you can believe it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Just about like 3 months ago. It was on Netflix. So I said, oh, I've got to see it. And so I was really happy to see it. It was a great film. Of course, that opening sequence is so dramatic. But yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. And of course, Way of the Dragon, where's it filmed? Colosseum. We're in Italy, Rome, spaghetti westerns. It all kind of ties together.
Oh, interesting.
Another score. Well, yeah, this I would say Amadeus was beautiful because this reintroduced classical music to a wide audience because of the flamboyant character of Amadeus Mozart as portrayed by Tom Hulce. So this soundtrack is lovely, but it is a score and it's filled with Mozart pieces. That's just how they put it together. Distinguished from the soundtrack or from the score of this music, distinguished because he didn't take more popular music perhaps and put it in as they do in something like, I think the greatest modern example would be Guardians of the Galaxy. Would you agree with that, Daisuke, or have I drifted? I could have drifted with that one.
No, please continue. No, that's yeah. I mean, I think there's a great way that the music can be applied in any film potentially. So no, but
Yeah.
please continue. Yes.
So some that modern that I really enjoyed. Certain filmmakers are really incorporating music nicely. I think Tarantino's work. So here's the soundtrack for Kill Bill Volume 1, the Crazy Eight sequence, where our hero Uma Thurman, her character goes in and has that massive over-the-top battle with the Crazy Eights, and the music as they walk into that room, very powerful. With that boom boom driving music rhythm as they come in, and of course there's a showdown with Uma Thurman and the young lady with the ball and chain, the schoolgirl, this psychotic schoolgirl, just fantastic. Let's see what else we got. Oh, I want to talk about this. I got to talk about my hero, Bruce Lee. This is a picture disc, so it's got the famous cover, with John Saxon, who I think we just lost him this year. Jim Kelly, who I think we lost last year or the year before. And of course, Bruce, who we lost in '73. Lalo Schifrin doing the soundtrack. I had the original of this back in '73. And this came out as a record store day purchase maybe 3 years ago or so. This music is so fantastic. You're in for a fun ride. The beginning, Hong Kong Harbor, bah, 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 woo, woo, and you got those Bruce Lee, and you are in for the ride of your life. Get the popcorn ready. We're going for a ride. This is going to be an adventure, and it's just so powerful. And of course, the outro is the reprise of the song we hear at the beginning with the, I don't want to spoil things, but there's the focus on Hans Bearclaw that we see, and the just marvelous stuff. This is a film I want to talk about, Risky Business. So the reason I want to talk about this film is because this is an example where music elevated the film out of just a kind of a Porky's a teen thing about trying to get laid into something far more profound, a comment on materialism and wealth and seeking the gold ring and climbing the corporate ladder as this young man, in the case of Tom Cruise's character, seeking to get into good admission to a good college, to career, the pressure, the upward mobility, and then lessons about it, and what you get, is it really what you want, and is it worth the cost? And the fact that Tangerine Dreams music is in here, along with Phil Collins, whose song from Face to Face, air something in the air tonight, I forget the exact name of that, but that song appears in here. And of course, it was used very effectively the opening season, the first episode of Miami Vice, where you had the car. I still remember the car wheel when that debuted, and I went, oh man, is this movie ever, this TV series going to be cool? Because of the music they had incorporated. It was a real eye opener. But Tangerine Dreams music, and they also did the same thing with the film The Keep, which was a horror film, but because of their music, it elevated it and made it something more, something a little more profound, something more to be contemplated and thought about. So Risky Business and the music of Tangerine Dream, I think it's a very important film for that reason, because it elevates a genre and helps it transcend its own limitations. So that's my thought on that one. That's one I wanted to share. See, I'm just playing pick up and go. Mulholland Drive, here's my criterion. The one criterion I did bring to the show, but this is a marvelous film. But I want to speak in large, in generally, to David Lynch as a filmmaker. Music is very, very important to him. And it appears certainly in the context of this film. The ladies and they're in the opera at the end, or where the woman is singing to them, the Roy Orbison song, Crying, beautiful, fantastic, powerful. So another film. So David Lynch, very, very good, uses music beautifully in his films.
Oh,
I feel
well
bad
done.
because I feel bad because I'm talking your ear off.
No. This is great. This is great. And you're touching upon a lot here, and you brought some again, say some Blu-rays or DVDs that you have in your collection, and then
Yeah.
there were some points that you brought the actual album itself. And so that also then leads me to the question about the soundtracks, because now, as you alluded to, the getting the soundtrack, that's also part of the experience of enjoying the film, or recalling or remembering the film, or enjoying a particular musical moment.
Very much so. Very much so. Yeah. And so you want to have the record on the thing because you love the movie so much. It's Bruce Lee, and then you put the record on, and it's got the, all the Bruce Lee yells in it, and you go, oh yeah, that's the scene where there's one song on there called The Human Fly. You go, oh yeah, that's when Bruce went through and he goes down the rope and he fights the guard at the beginning, and it's like whap 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 whap, and you just go, oh my God, he's fast. And then he goes down, and when he comes back, you got Jim Kelly out there having a breather, and he goes, imagine that, a human fly. And that sequence of music is used for it very, very powerfully, very poignantly. I think the other thing I want to talk about, sometimes, again, like we talked about Laura's theme, there are certain songs that come out from a film and really put an artist on the map. I think a good case in point is, I'm going to get them. Come on. Right, there you are. Chariots of Fire. It's a marvelous film, beautifully filmed, but a big part of this film, and again, so effective, it's been parodied to no end, and it is Vangelis, Chariots of Fire, 1981, the soundtrack, Chariots of Fire. Fantastic. And of course, the slow motion and the running on the beach and all that, and they return to it over and over again. Even in a film like So I Married an Axe Murderer with Mike Myers, and the Laws, There She Goes, played over and over to help kind of drive that film along, because it's there. Great soundtracks that really came out of a movie where the movie used sound to such a great effect, and music to put you there. Done nowhere better than Forrest Gump. But other films that used it effectively are ones like American Graffiti, which you got to have these songs if you want to do a song that's or a film that's trying to take you back to a place and time. And so they use that music. Oh yeah, where were you? The tagline, where were you in 62? And so they use that as the tagline for that. And they use some music to punctuate that and drive the point home. The greatest selling soundtrack of all time, The Bodyguard, Whitney Houston. Second most selling, Saturday Night Fever. This thing re-energized the Bee Gees' career. They were lagging. They were seen as outdated, a 60s group. They do this album and it becomes #1. It's just a smash. And it really fired up the whole disco craze to the point that Airplane, the movie Airplane, of course, famously parodied John Travolta here and the Bee Gees sound, but they had so many hits off this album. #2 selling soundtrack of all time. And really, you know, in the 70s when that came up, everybody was all about that. Another soundtrack and another director that used music very effectively was the late John Hughes. And again, another genealogy alert, I got to do him. Tarquin Gotch, who ended up working with John Hughes, is a distant cousin, a fourth cousin of mine. And he was the music director for Ferris Bueller's Day Off, another film where, interestingly enough, they got the Beatles' Twist and Shout. So the climatic scene with Matthew Broderick down in Chicago, they're downtown, and they're all dancing in the parade, and they actually use the Beatles version of Twist and Shout. Not easy to do because Apple, very protective over the Beatles soundtrack. But this had a whole number of great songs. Molly Ringwald in here, of course, a star. And she, or one of the songs on here is Please, Please, Please Let Me Get What I Want This Time, the Smiths. So this great band known as the Smiths, who I love as well, really love their music. And this beautiful, beautiful, short, very short song, but it appears here. And so it helps get the Smiths into North American ears and propels them forward, because this thing was a smash selling soundtrack, a very popular album. Then there's some like the musicals. So I would be remiss, being who I am, if I didn't share Rocky Horror Picture Show. This became a cult thing in and of itself, midnight showings. So people reenacting scenes of the film when the rain's there, and Janet and her beau head into the castle, and they've got the newspapers on the head. The people in the audience would put newspapers, and they'd be shooting water guns all over, so the rain would be falling on everybody. It became a real phenomena. The wonderful Tim Curry in the role of Frankenfurter, our mad, sweet transsexual from, or transvestite from the planet Transsexual. I mean, great parody, great satire, great humor. So very, very good.
Oh, I have to stop you there for a moment. What is that?
Yeah.
I never got that on vinyl. I only had it on the C. Is it worth getting?
It's a remaster. Yeah, if you like the music, the Time Warp and
Yes.
Sweet Transit, all those songs are on here. Touch it, touch me, touch it, touch it. You know, that's the
Yeah.
one sung by our lead actress,
Susan Sarandon. Yeah.
Susan Sarandon sings it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sings it
And
to
Meatloaf's
Rocky.
on
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Rocky.
Yeah.
I'm going home. I'm going home, of course, you know, the
Ah,
singing where they go at the end.
yes.
Superheroes is on here, which is
Okay.
great.
Okay, because
Science fiction double feature, reprise or reprise.
that is yeah, I
Eddie
have
is on
that.
here.
Oh, yeah, that is a great
Oh,
soundtrack. Yeah.
it's a lot of, it's silly, it's fun,
Yeah.
and campy as heck. You
Yeah.
know, it's just a step to the right. Let's do the Time Warp again. Another one is gosh, now Herman. Last name's Herman. I'll get his name. It's Bernard Herrmann, Hitchcock. A great anecdote about this one is Hitchcock originally, this is showing the power of music again in film. Hitchcock initially envisioned the shower scene, the famous shower scene in Psycho, as not having music at all. Herman said, let's put some violins in there. And boy, do they work. So that scene accompanied with the violins makes that scene and added to the horror of that scene in my opinion, made it that much better. And it's so iconic that I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying what I just said there. Very, very good. The beautiful, majestic 2001, one of the great soundtracks of all time, in my opinion. Scores, Strauss waltzes. So you've got the space station going around. And what a film this is. What a film this is. Big fan of Kubrick. And of course, Kubrick, being the perfectionist he was, everything he does. And in every film, there's meaning behind everything. He's been analyzed ad nauseum, but it's an absolute fascinating study, much like David Lynch. Lynch can be so obtuse and difficult to understand in a term. What are you trying to say here? And so the analyses that are available on his work are worthy, make for worthy viewing. Number of YouTube videos up on both these gentlemen's work. I got tons of stuff. I got too much stuff. And I'm apologizing right now to everyone. I'm so sorry for yapping so much. You're probably all sick to death of me by now.
No,
but
no, not
I do get passionate about it. I do get passionate.
Oh, this is really wonderful. I have to ask then also, because you are also a kind of collector as well. You appreciate the quality of particular versions or pressings and the like. And so oh yeah, and so I guess what I mean, I don't necessarily mean in terms of monetary value per se, but just for you, what are some of those things or those particular musical related items that you have a particular attachment to, or that you hold in high value for specific reasons?
It's a very personal story, and it chronicles the evolution of media for all of us. So I used to collect records because what do you buy? You buy records, or you could buy a cassette tape, or you could buy reel to reel. That's all you're available. And if you go down to Kmart or your local big box store, whatever it may have been in 1973, which would have been like Kmart for me. Walmart didn't exist then. So you go to Kmart and there's the records in the aisle. So you buy a record because you've got a record player. You know, mom and dad have got a record player. So I'm going to buy a record. So then you get those, and suddenly it's 1984, 85. And suddenly this wonderful new device called the CD is invented, and it doesn't crack or popple, and it can't be scratched, and the sound is perfect. Oh, this is better than records. Okay, here, you can have all my records, friend. I've got a new CD player. Take them all. You can have them. Oh, Japanese pressings. It doesn't matter. This is better. So all they go. So you get rid of everything. Then you get older. You get nostalgic. And then there's a fellow on YouTube called Ron Beaudry. Beaudry. And I start watching Ron Beaudry. And Ron says, oh, here's an old record. I got this record. Let's open the record. Oh, it's got a big gatefold. I go, I had that record. I remember that record. And Ron is so nice and friendly and great and such a good communicator. I go, I got to see more of Ron. So I started watching Ron's videos a lot. And just by osmosis, just like I did with you, like you, I blame you, Daisuke, because of your passion and ability to show me music. I said, I got to get that Criterion. I need the Criterion version of this. Ron did the same thing for me, only in records. And so I started buying, and the ones that have the most meaning are the ones I used to own, and I found it again after all these years. You're back. And I remember opening it up, and there you open it up, and there's the gatefold, and you hold the record. I remember that. And you can, or maybe there's a booklet in it that came when it was originally there. I remember that. And so it's like regaining a part of you that was lost, and that you're redeeming something and bringing back something that you remember. So to have those big Beatles, and of course CDs are a lot smaller, and I'm looking, do I have a CD handy? Yeah, here's an example. So we got Pink here, right? This is the artist Pink. So it's a little CD. It's great. There's a picture of her, but you know, when you compare it to, ooh, look at this. And here's just showing you, and there's Help, right? And then, so how did they come? This is the North American release. This is how it was released in North America. And then, well, I got to let it be there. And then here's how it was released in England and also Sweden. I believe this might be a Swedish pressing. This is mono. So of course you can buy things in mono or you can buy them in stereo. How did the Beatles record? Well, they recorded all their stuff in mono, and they were really only interested in their mono releases. It was the engineers that went in after and did stereo. And yet, even with that in mind, what did I grow up with? Well, by the time I get there and I'm a teenager and now I'm old enough to start appreciating this stuff and I'm putting away my toys and getting more into music, then I said, oh, okay, well, what am I buying? Well, they all come in stereo. I'll buy the stereo because that's all that's available. This is on the original Rainbow Capital. The labels changed over the years. And so, you know, these albums, and then my Japanese pressings with the Obi, I loved all those, you know, to have. So yeah, I buy these things back and they make me happy, right? Just the kind of that sense of it. And the idea of having something physical in your hands, but not just physical, not just the throwaway dime store variety. This is Sid and Nancy. Another film I wanted to talk about, because at the end, the use of the song by Casey and the Sunshine Band, make a little land, do a little get down tonight, get down. That song comes at the end, and it kind of puts the drape over Sid and Nancy, the era of punk, and they're being supplanted and overcome by new music that's coming. Things are changing. You've lived your lives. Time moves on. Something's happening, and the director of this film uses that to very great effect. You've seen the film, you know, the scene I'm thinking of towards the end. So
Wonderful, absolutely wonderful, my friend. And this is again a type of, you are talking about the journey, but you're talking about it in terms of, because I like collecting. Sometimes people who don't collect, maybe it's a little bit difficult to understand what is the reason behind people collect. I think there are many reasons. And I think it's also reflective of sort of maybe certain feelings that we have about art, but also memories. And you mentioned it very well about how those memories of having that particular record back in the day, but then you gave it away, but then now you're able to reignite your passion for it. And as you said, it reminds you of your memories and how you felt when you were first listening to that particular music or movie.
Yeah, and
or
I'm
whatever.
a very nostalgic person, Daisuke. So for me in particular, and people with my psychological bent or orientation, we're like, I love nostalgia. I'm a sap. I like sentimentality, but I like sentimentality with intellectual rigor. So you can't just be sentimentality, but you've done wrong things as a character. I'm not going to feel sympathy for you. You're getting what you deserve. Like that. There's that sense of justice. My psychology wants those kind of elements to be present before I can buy into it. If you understand, if you know if I'm communicating that effectively.
No, that's a very interesting perspective, indeed. Yes. So this is really great. And so I think, let's see, there are so many other questions and so many more things I'd want to talk about. But I think maybe let me now ask in a, well, oh gosh. Oh, well, here's another question that I had while you were speaking earlier, which was, just by the way, what is it like for you now in terms of getting, say, certain vinyl releases or pressing? How does that work now? Because of course of the current pandemic situation, it's going out is quite limited, and stores. So what is that? Is it all online? Is it, or do you manage to go to stores and do a lot of searching that way? How is it like for you these days?
For me, we've been very fortunate. I'm on Vancouver Island. I guess I should have said this at the beginning. I'm on Vancouver Island, Canada. So I'm on the west coast of British Columbia, Vancouver Island, not to be confused with Vancouver City, which is a big city on the mainland. Captain George Vancouver discovering all this area for the British. And so therefore his name, graces many landmarks here. So I'm on Vancouver Island, and we're not in lockdown. So I can go to the store. We just wear a mask. You can go in, flip through everything, sanitize your hands, in you go, out you go. The greater hindrance to me is the sheer price of these things. So in Canada, with our Canadian dollar, it's not unusual to pay $35 for an album. That's a fairly typical price. By the time you add in tax and these things, $35, $40 is nothing. It's very common. I wouldn't think twice about it. I go, but back in the day when we were first buying these things, so a lifetime ago, $5, $3.99, this sort of idea, right? So the inflation, the cost has gone up a very great deal. I got just a couple of further notes that I wanted to address.
Please.
Films that are about music. The Last
Oh, yeah.
Waltz, again, Scorsese's. This is a masterpiece. The band, of course, largely Canadian, Robbie Robertson and friends, Levon Helm, legend, who I saw in concert with Ringo Starr, and Rick Danko, also the band. So they're the two voices you hear that sing The Weight. Go down, Miss Moses, ain't nothing. You get in. Crazy Chester, follow me. That's Rick Danko's part. Crazy Chester, follow me. And it took me by surprise. And so that's him. And then Levon Helm is doing the major vocal. And so to hear those voices was a magic moment as a concert. But The Last Waltz, this is a very, very good film. The music, it's art. It transcends. Again, it's a film. I love films that can transcend themselves, that become something bigger than themselves. And I think The Last Waltz is a case in point where the film becomes much more than just a film about a band. And Scorsese brings that to light. I think there's a scene near the end where they're all dancing. And at the end, the way he worked the end with the silhouettes and like, they become simply a band. They're simply the band. Beautiful. And then this is a marvelous, marvelous documentary called The Wrecking Crew. It details the story of the studio musicians that contributed so much, not only to not only to popular music, but also to soundtracks in film, television. Many of these artists found their way into the soundtracks of many films. Absolutely marvelous behind the scenes look at the contribution of the unsung, pardon the pun, unsung, unheralded talent that really comprises the soundtrack for people of my generation, our lives. Nancy Sinatra, the Monkees, the Beach Boys, Neil Diamond, talking about it, Phil Spector. There's just so many acts, and Sonny and Cher, on and on and on it goes. Mamas and Papas, those were the artists behind it. And the film's called, whoops, get it in front of my, you're better at this, Rach. There you go. The Wrecking Crew. So two very good films about music.
There we go. Oh, that's great. That is absolutely great. And you have given us such a great overview and just these great examples that you've given. And I know that the work that you do on your channel, you talk about these and other matters in great detail, and with a great community there as well, and great participants. And so I just want to thank you so much, Rachel, for giving us a little bit of your just a little sampling of your great insight and passion and enthusiasm for these films and for this music.
Oh, I love
Uh,
Daisuke. I can't tell you now. I just love film. Like you love film, and your knowledge. I'm telling you, you're just an inspiration. I'm not. It's not just wordplay. I mean every word of it. And Sue and I watch it. I said, I got hey Daisuke's on. Let's go watch this. And it's just fantastic. And I just, it motivates. I can't. You're like an evangelist for Criterion. They should be paying you, in my opinion,
oh, you're
because so
very
many
kind.
people buying the films because of your own passion and your ability to go, here's what I got, here's what I like about the film. You break it down, you give the spoiler alerts, everybody leave the room, don't watch my video now, come back later after you've seen it, because it's just done so well. And so I'm really, really happy I discovered you, Daisuke. A
Oh,
very
that's very kind.
happy
Uh,
discovery.
no, and the really the pleasure is all mine. I'm so glad. I feel very fortunate. We were able to meet and then to be able to speak like this right now.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's
so,
a dream really for me, just to do this. Now I
uh,
want more from you, I'm so sorry that like I kind of dominated things here, but so
oh,
I do feel bad about that, but
no, 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 no. This is no,
I've been
this is
known to do it.
no, no, no. This was a great opportunity for me to hear from you, and this is why I wanted to invite you on, was to hear your stories and to hear your recommendations, and like you've given that to us. And I feel like we've only just we've only just begun. And so I think we should continue this. I'd love to continue because I know that there's a lot that we were thinking of talking about, but we didn't end up talking about. And there are many more examples and many more recommendations that I know you
Well,
have. And so,
it would be my distinct pleasure. I mean, oh man, there's just so much. I gotta
oh, so
shut myself up. I gotta shut
let's do
myself
it.
up.
Yeah, no, 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 no. Let's do this again very soon, if that's okay, my friend.
Oh, of course, Daisuke. I mean,
Oh,
my honor as well, my friend.
thank you, Rachel. Thank you. And so before we go, let me just say that for anyone who may be meeting you here for the first time, once again, we mentioned it earlier, but where can people find you? And
Yeah.
what will you be planning on your YouTube channel in the coming days and weeks? So first of all, yeah.
Yeah.
So one more time, your YouTube channel, please.
The way you find me is I am Rachel, Rachel, and Daisuke will have it in the description of the upload, but it's Rachel the Music Mam, MAM VC. The VC standing for a vinyl community. So I guess I could write it here and just hold a sign up. I've never done that before, but let's do it. Let's do it. Rachel. The channel has done really well for itself in the short time I've been doing this. I haven't been at it for quite a year. I started making films in general, or uploads, like YouTube uploads, in January. January 6th was my first one, 2020. But I started doing the live stream format in August last year. Okay, I hope you can read this. This is not the best, but oh, let's get it. Okay. Now, is that even legible? Oh, it's all backwards. Never mind. Never mind. It's the nature of the camera and how it works better. Folks, it was a failed experiment. I apologize.
I
Check
will
out
leave.
Daisuke's
I will leave the
description.
information. No, thank you.
Horrible.
That's
Horrible.
no, no, no. That's the information will be in the description box
Thank you, Daisuke. I'm
below.
so appreciative.
What can we look forward to in the next, say, episodes or
Yeah.
live streams or discussions on your channel?
So the live streams are really nilly-willy. I just fly and I start talking. Usually I feature new albums I may have purchased. The main thing is the interviews I do. So I interview a lot of people within the community, just like you've kind of interviewed me on some level here today, with the focus on my movie journey in music. But on my show, I ask people like, how did you get into music? The same kind of question you ask, what genres are you into? Influences. And then I ask them, bring 5 albums with you. Show me, so we can have an example of the kind of stuff you like. or CDs or tapes or whatever it may be. And I just ask about their journey, much as you've done here with myself. So yeah, and so the interviews have been very successful, and there's a number of them up there. The other thing I do we have contests. And then what I do, because I've been so blessed and gifted by free records and free gifts from so many people. It's happened so much. I don't take prize money or if you do a contest, people who do a contest ostensibly to get more subscribers, more eyes on the channel. So as a means of promotion, we'll do a contest. Hey, folks, would you like to win this Pink CD, or would you like to win this, Beatles album? Well, it can be yours. Here's what I want you to do. Make a video, do this sort of thing. So I answer these, but what I like to do is give the prize if I'm lucky enough to win, and I have been in certain cases, and I pass those on to people that support me in my channel. Almost like a Patreon idea. Daisuke, are you doing the Patreon and all that sort of thing for yourself?
No, I don't do Patreon. I have nothing against Patreon, and I think it's wonderful, and people should support their favorite artists and creators through Patreon if possible. But for me, no, I don't do I have, how should I put it? It's like I can barely keep up with how to use YouTube. So if I have to,
Yeah,
I don't know if I can handle having to deal with yet another app
element
or
of it.
something. Yeah, just another thing to try to figure out
Sure.
how to use and stuff. So no,
Yeah.
it's but I support Patreon very much so. And also that kind of a similar type of support network. I think that's very, very important indeed. Yes.
Well, Daisuke, I'm a big fan. At the end of the day, I just love what you do. I love your channel, and I'm very fond of you and a great deal of respect for you. I love your passion for a film. It comes across, it's infectious. And if I hadn't had such a budget for for records, and they're costing me a lot, let alone the Criterion films, I have to be really selective. I've got Barry Lyndon. I had to own Barry Lyndon.
Mm.
I went and picked up Mulholland Drive. I wanted that one.
Yeah.
And and Babette's Feast I picked up. There's so many great films on the Criterion Collection, but I also subscribe to the online version. So I was able to watch the 400 Blows there because one I wanted to see for a while, and Truffaut and Fellini's films, tremendous. And so I enjoy that. Wings of Desire. And is it Tarakovsky? Who's the young Russian director? He was killed when he went out and filmed that nuclear. It's an amazing film where he goes out. I'll find
Stalker.
out.
Stalker. The film is
name
Stalker.
of the film Stalker. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's the director?
Oh, Tarkovsky.
Tarkovsky.
Yeah.
Brilliant films.
Yeah.
Like he's done. My young son, who's now 30, he introduced me to his work.
Huh.
And my son has the same passion for music, and he's looked into Criterion. He says, here's one you got to watch. And so he introduced Tarkovsky to me, and I love the films. Ante Rublev, is that it? I believe.
Oh yes, Andrei Rublev. Yes.
Andrei
yes.
Rublev, fantastic film, fantastic.
Yes.
So,
well done. Yeah.
Yeah, and Picnic at Hanging Rock, what a film that is.
Yeah.
That the Australian film, great mystery, and there's just so many, So that's really where pick your brain and go for that. And lately, my guilty pleasures, Sue and I have been all over the Ghibli studio releases for the anime, and just loving those darn things. We saw Pompoko, and we're a little shocked. Some of the elements in the, in the show. Paprika, we love Paprika, was a fantastic film. I don't know if you've seen that at all.
Yeah.
Very good because of the music in it, by the way. The music is used very effectively in that. But I've kept you here too long, and I've talked far too much, and I apologize one more time. God help me.
No, 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 Rachel, this was lovely, absolutely lovely. And so we must continue this again.
All right.
And so, as I say, there are so many things that we were going to talk about, but we didn't end up, right, because it was such a lovely conversation, and so
I
there's so many
blame
more
me.
things. No, 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 not at all. But it means that we have to let's make time again. I know that you're
Sure.
busy, but let's try to do this again very soon if possible.
It'd be my pleasure.
All right, Rachel. Thank you
Thanks,
so much.
everybody. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Daisuke.
Cheers.